Hi, this is DJ Mondo. Welcome back to another episode of the Atomic Luau, and welcome back to another episode of Sketch Lab. This is the show where we make the futile, gallant but futile attempt to finish some of the millions of sketches that I have partially done in my iPad, as I am a digital artist. I'm going to put that in air quotes because most of the time artists like to finish things, but a lot of times I don't. But if you've been watching previous episodes of Sketch Lab, you'll notice that I have been working on a little 6-page story just to kind of keep my skills fresh about a couple of space cowgirls who fight a cyborg in a bar, and I'm still working on that. I finished up the inks in that, but I'm trying to figure out how to approach putting color to those pages that I did, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But right now, what I'm doing is I just thought I'd walk through a couple of sketches that I posted earlier this week on YouTube and some of my other social media channels like Instagram, and posted them on TikTok and stuff like that. But they're just sketches that I had sitting around in my iPad that, I'm just practicing, trying to take different approaches to, representing materials and playing with light and stuff like that, light sketches and things like that, working out environments. I do a lot of character drawing, but I don't think I do enough drawing of mechanical stuff and environments and things like that, and I kind of want to branch out and do more. But this a couple of sketches that I have here that I posted, I'm gonna represent some of the different things that I try to practice when I'm sketching. Anyway, I'm just going to go through a couple of these and just talk about, I don't know, maybe what I was thinking when I sketched these out, and or what I was trying to accomplish, and how they could be useful in other ways. But mostly I just want to draw like comic books and stuff like that, and storyboards and things. And I really want to learn to animate, but I haven't been dedicating enough time to animating. But I'll get back to that. And see what I can. Anyway, this first drawing here is, apparently some pilot who is standing outside of what I'm guessing appears to be some kind of anti-grav flying pod that I designed. I guess I'm not even sure what the inspiration for this was, but it's I think maybe I was watching Escape from New York. There's with a movie where Kurt Russell goes into Manhattan Island in order to save the president, and the president has crash landed in Manhattan, and by this time in the future, Manhattan has been turned into a huge prison. Basically a walled off prison, but the president has crashed there. Snake Plissken, played by Kurt Russell, is sent in as a one-man army to get the president out. But anyway, the connection here is that the pod that the president lands in when Air Force One crashes there looks like this pod here. It's it's like a sphere with a seat in it, and that's built to absorb the shock of the crash. And if I can zoom in here, whoops, I don't think there we go. There's like a seat up there, and then the inside is like padded so that so to absorb the shock of any crash. And then it's got that curved door on top that opens up and forms the front window when it comes down. And but I just thought that was an interesting design. So what I did was I tacked on a couple of warp drive nacelles from Star Trek, and then these rounded like jet engine or repulsor engines or something like that. We don't say repulsor around here because we don't want to get sued, but it's basically a little sphere, one seater sphere with repulsors and don't say repulsors and warp drives. And but this set of stairs that comes out of it. So I guess it doesn't land, so it just kind of hovers in the air. But this pilot, of course, is with this skin tight bodysuit, which is, I guess if it's small enough, you're going to need that to get in there. But it's like some skin tight spacesuit. But with the transparency. But I was playing around with the transparency, trying to represent transparency on the helmet. Because you've got one of those bubble dome helmets, kind of the retro 1950s sort of space look. But I was playing with that, and then a different color scheme. Didn't want to go with the regular, Air Force spacesuit white. But the background of this, and I think what I was going for here was to put down a neutral color for the background, and then kind of erase the parts that you want to be light in order to represent light. So that's where the thrust comes from the repulsor jets and those lights that are around the seating area and the warp nacelles. But it was just a different kind of technique. I was just playing around with the idea of just laying down swaths of color and then kind of pulling the image backwards and forwards out of those, with different areas of shading and lighting and stuff like that. But I want to be very light conscious with the with the sketches that I make. But anyway, that's what I was thinking when I made this. But I like designing those little, space environments and things like that. So anyway, oops. I spent a while. Keep going back to this idea of designing a sea monster, and the theme is the base from 20,000 Fathoms, which, if you remember, I'm into 50s sci-fi a lot. There was a movie called The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, so I wanted to create this. Something to kind of mimic that, but it had to have something to do with speakers, because it represents the bass in like techno music or house music. So, but I ran through a couple of different designs of this creature, and at first he's like a variation on a Tyrannosaurus, kind of like Godzilla. And at one point I wanted to make him a giant crab, but he ends up being this, I came across this hermit crab design, with basically a hermit crab with a giant with a giant speaker on his back, and it went through several iterations. Like, I wanted it to be robotic, or is it a cyborg? Is it alive, or what? And this is one down here with that's basically a Godzilla with instead of fins on his back, he's got these bass speakers on him. But and at one point I wanted him to be an octopus. I sketched an octopus that had built-in speakers. But yeah, if you have any other ideas for the bass from 20,000 Fathoms, and actually, hold on, what's that? This fish whale sort of eel thing here has got speakers as well, but yeah, I never settled on a design. I think I wanted it to be a giant crab with a built-in sound system, but but I never really settled on anything. But it was just just a way of knocking around ideas. But I usually kind of settle on like themes and then try to pull some ideas out of it. But yeah, that was the base from 20,000 Fathoms. This design is a part of a series of little sketches I have. I was trying to create environments for the DJ Mondo story. Getting back to the story that I did, it's kind of there's a club where DJ Mondo works, and this part of the club, as depicted here, is actually the boss's office that is above the dance floor. And so there's a window there that overlooks the dance floor, and you've got this, reddish lighting here with the business desk and of course a couch and TV and stuff. But I was just kind of doing this weird layout, and then laying down this overall color, and then kind of work on lighting and stuff like that, recessed lighting that's built into the floor there, and the reflections on the window. But it's not enough to just sketch out the environment, but you want to try to figure out the lighting and stuff of it too. Tone drawings. At least I was told by a teacher, one of my teachers, is at least do a tone drawing. If you're going to draw something, at least do a tone drawing. That way you get a sense of like light and darkness and stuff, and which kind of helps to shape the environment and give it a little bit more depth than just a regular line drawing. So that's kind of be my philosophy going forward, is work on tone drawings. But yeah, this is the office with the giant picture window that overlooks the dance floor. Which, and again, one overall color scheme, and then just bring your other highlight items out of that, like the screens. Everything that's screens or electronic or something is lit up in that bright off-white blue. This is, I guess, the backside of some apartment building. A really rough sketch of a backside of an apartment building, a set of back stairs leading to the exit. Again, playing with the lighting and how is the light going to play out in this place right here, with that one single light above the staircase, but it's going to affect it. And it probably should have been a little bit more contrast in this drawing. But again, I think it, kind of conveys the idea, but I just wanted to, again, work on more environments. And this is the main dance floor of the corral of the club. And again, dimly lit because it's a club, kind of a nightclub feel to it. But you've got this recessed area where the DJ sets up. And if you can hold on, if I can, DJ Mondo, where his performance. But there's all this, it's a little futuristic. But the thing is, I wanted to kind of give it this cowboy motif with this longhorned ox or whatever it is over there. And again, working on lighting and giving it a sense of lighting and reflections here, those floodlights on the ground. And then, of course, they're reflected on the shining dance floor. But again, it's all in an attempt to kind of practice making environments and kind of giving them depth like that, So, what does that say? Oh, Longhorn Corral. And of course, there's some cabaret seating. And finally, DJ Mondo and Dr. Sim on their way to work. So, and my original intent with this one was I was actually going to make an animation, slide animation with a set of double doors that slide open in front of them. which I still might do that. But then basically, come in, and then I could kind of export it as a GIF and maybe use it for something else. But yeah, this futuristic club entrance. So fun stuff. But yeah, that's some of the sketches, some of the leftover sketches. But I posted, like I said, I posted them on earlier on social media just to give a sense of what I'm working on, or how I work up an idea, But yeah, I'm going to do more of those in the future. I want to draw more environments, more vehicles, and things like that. I think I spend a little bit too much time just focusing on characters rather than trying to put them in environments and things. So that'll be my next goal. And one more time, a quick run through of the pages from the Space Cowgirls. This is, of course, a prequel to the DJ Mondo story, and the inks are finally finished. But I don't know if I want to go through putting down tones first, or just laying down flat colors, and then trying to put in tones and highlights. But I think I've got to look over, how some of the other artists do it. And if you got any like techniques or anything like that, if you want to tell me, send me an email, djmondo@djmondosrave.com, and I would be interested in how you would approach this. And all of these items are layered. All of the pages are layered. Because you can see, like on the right, there's roughs, cleanup, inks, and then I'm going to put in a second layer of inks, so that I can put in like experimental cross hatching and things like that without risking the main layer of inks. That's probably a little bit maybe too time consuming, but yeah, I just want to be a little bit more experimental. I really like some forms of cross hatching that I may not want to do in the same layer as the original. I use a lot of broad lines, kind of like broad Jack Kirby style lines in the main layer. But then I want to get more intricate and do more intricate cross hatching in the secondary layer. So, but here, for example, like I said, it's a little thick on the outline of the characters, but those wispy thin lines there that make up the lips, you might barely even see those on a print, or on a printout of this. Depending on how you print it out, that's almost like pencil sketching right there. But again, I like the way it looks, and it's not overpowering, like thick Jack Kirby style lines. But then you want them to stand out from the rest of the environment. You outline the whole figure in a thicker line. So we'll see. That's one of my favorite poses, and very casual. Depicted smoking. Probably shouldn't do that. It's not for kids. And I made a stray mark. And also this guy with the dark areas right here, I probably should have waited to put those dark areas in their own layer along with the color layer. Like the line work should be separate from the layers that are just covered in those thick black areas. And like I said before, that this is actually done in raster, meaning that all of the lines here are pixelated rather than vector. I should have drawn this in vector. and I'm not going to make that mistake again. And it's all of my, main inking going forward is going to be done in vector, because vector is just awesome for maintaining the smoothness no matter how much you zoom it. And with raster, you're going to get those jagged edges when you zoom in. And so, for example, I can zoom. You see that jagged pixelated there. You would not have that with vector. It would be smooth as glass for vector. So, and then, to come in, do it in vector for the line drawing, and then come in with raster to do the large covered black areas like this. So that would be something that I would do differently if I were approaching this again. Interesting cast of characters. I made a couple of Lobot looking space truckers. If everybody knows who Lobot is, that's a quiz, pop quiz for you. Who is Lobot? If you know, email me, djmondo at djmondosrave.com. And this girl with Afro puffs back there. A couple of weirdos in the back with, but it's like kind of a nexus of aliens. Of course, story is set in the future, kind of in a world similar to Blade Runner, but not as bleak, So, but I wanted to get a nice weird cast of characters. There's some people who don't even breathe regular human atmosphere, but they still like to come in and get a drink once in a while. Anything else on page 2? Again, a lot of casual dialogue. I'm kind of proud of being able to depict just people kind of sitting around casually. A lot of times, a lot of comics is just people, depicting dialogue in an interesting way rather than it's all fight scenes and stuff until you can get to the fight scenes. So, and different angles if you can get them. I think I might have to change that sign. I think that sign just says the corral. I think it's the Longhorn Corral is the, so I might have to redo that sign that's behind her right shoulder there. And for the bottles depicted in the back, I basically made I think I made a copy. I think I drew a bunch of bottles and then just kind of copied them all and to make this huge couple of shelves with these bottles on them. And like this. Now this girl is she basically got an Apple Watch that detects evil cyborgs. That's not quite what's happening here, but that's the basic gist of it. We get to Spider Guy now. I figure Spider Guy came in with his legs locked together so he could pretend to be a regular human, but then he gets out on the dance floor and his 4 spider legs come out. His 4 military grade spider legs come out, and he decides to rob the place. But and again, this is a place where you want to learn to kind of depict machinery, and I've got this weird style for machinery, and I do this every time there's like a robot joint or something. I make this huge ball joint kind of as depicted right here, and this silverish kind of ball joint is the same style. But I should branch out because it's starting to look kind of old, and when every cyborg that you draw has the same kind of parts on it, it starts to get kind of boring. So you should probably draw different types of parts, different types of joints and things like that. So, but it worked in this case. But yeah, cyborg guy. Why is he so mad? Oh, and he's got bolts in his head. So maybe he's stealing people's info as well, stealing their data. And Space Cowgirls fly into action, and Acidity comes over the bar. Lobot panics, and then the first whip of the Electro Whip flies out, and which is the good time to use the radial ruler. The what do you call it? Oh, the perspective ruler, to kind of depict speed there. But that's it's one thing I like about manga, is that you in their depiction of speed, you're kind of riding along with the subject, so and depicting that speed and power. And Spider Guy gets electrocuted by the electric bullwhip, and which Boss is not happy because she doesn't like her place to be robbed, and which causes him to drop one of his guns. So, yeah, that electricity. I could have done that electricity a little bit different. Maybe thicken up the lines and and do those dots like Jack Kirby would do. But there's another one that comes through here. Cyborg Guy fires another shot, and that's when Chubbs runs in and blocks those shots. Now there needs to be some more action here against the shield, because those shots bounce off of Chubb's shield here. So I'm probably going to have to come in and maybe make another layer and draw some deflected gunshots and stuff. And I don't know if the speed lines work here, but I may redo those lines. I don't know if they're in their own layer. Let's check. I think the panel cleanup. No, I might have already dropped those inks. Yeah, they're all in the same layer. So, all right. If I clean those up, I'd have to probably trace out Chubbs and Boss again, and drop those in over in their own layer, and just get rid of that the layer with the speed lines. But that'd probably take too long. It's already taken like 2 years to to do this much. So yeah, let's not add another 6 months to it. So and Chubbs, who has a cyborg, well, either a cyborg arm or a metallic sleeve, fires another repulsor blast. Well, again, fires another not repulsor blast at Spider Guy, disarming him again, disarming him permanently this time. And if you zoom in here, like I said, she's got another cyborg arm with these. And again, that's another thing that I kind of fall back on, is those things on her shoulders are like vents or stuff. I figure if you've got like a cyborg and you've got like a micro nuclear reactor in there, you're going to need some vents in there to keep it cool. So there's that, and then she's got these, which leads down into these set of buzz knuckles that have a built-in repulsor ray, built-in not repulsor. that she fires in order to disarm Spider Guy. Spider Guy is disarmed, and last move, Sadiddy runs in again, speed lines. She gets a lift assist from Chubbs, and she flies into the air, activates her electric nunchucks, and Spider Guy, who is completely dumbfounded, even though he is connected to like other computers and stuff through the bolts, through the Wi-Fi in his head, takes one on the chin and gets completely knocked unconscious. And you'll notice in this panel that I did not blacken in the spider legs, which is how I should have done it in the others. Everything that's blackened in there should have been done in another layer. But Sadiddy lands, strikes a pose, and they decide to wrap things up. They wonder how he got in the club without being detected. He must have some shielding on his internal nuclear power. And they ask, what do you want to do with him? And she says, you're the bouncer, bounce him. And that's how it ends. Okay, now it's only done except for the coloring and shadows. Now, this is a dimly lit club, and there's got to be some lights going on because there's a dance floor. And so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to depict that. So I may do some color tests, just cut out a few panels and see how they look when they're depicted in different ways. But like I said, since it's a club, I want to depict things like there's like a lighted wall in the back, or a screens, if there's a way to depict screens, for club visuals kind of thing in the back. That might be interesting to do. But yeah, inks are done, and so let's move on to coloring. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and call it here because it's kind of late, but thanks for hanging out if you hang out, and if you drew something, let me know where it is, where I can see it. Send a link to DJ Mondo at djmondosrave.com, and check out the website, djmondosrave.com. Pick up a t-shirt while you're there. As usual, we are in association with Bunfingers College. Bunfingers College, the most cost-effective educational alternative in the outer solar system. They do good work over there, and be sure to listen to Bunfingers College Radio when they're online. So anyway, thanks for watching, and check out Sketch Lab. And I'll try to do more of these Sketch Lab ones going forward. I think I've been neglecting Sketch Lab lately. So, thanks. Bye.